Yeah, good afternoon. This is the Thurston County Board of Health for September 11, 2018. I'm Commissioner Bud Blake, Chair of the board this year. I'd like to start off with a few introductions. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Commissioner John Hutchings. To his right is Lydia Hutchinson, the clerk of the board. To her right is Shelley Slaughter, Director of Public Health and Social Services. To her right is Dr. Wood, who is the Health Officer for Lewis and Thurston County. And to her right is Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager and Budget Officer. With that in mind, I'll ask if there's an approval for today's agenda, September 11, 2018.
I move to approve the agenda for September 11, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve today's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries. We have a very exciting lineup today as far as Board of Health, and we'll start off with a proclamation. And this week, it happens to be Septic Smart Week, and we have a proclamation to read for that. But first, I'd like to bring up Art Story, who's part of the environmental health, and have him talk about it and give a little bit of background. It's absolutely fascinating, just some of the history of the septics and where we're at and where we're going. So Art, you got the floor and take it away.
Good afternoon, and thank you for letting me come up here for Septic Smart Week, which is actually next week.
Oh.
So you're going to get to proclaim a week in advance. So that's
See how smart that is?
It has some effect that you're saying that's exciting about the world of septic systems.
Yeah, that's what I like, the world of septic.
As many of you have heard before, there's about 53,000 septic systems in Thurston County.
Unincorporated.
All told, they generate something like 12 million gallons of wastewater per day, which is close to what the lot wastewater treatment plant generates. And they do a really good job of treating wastewater if they're properly installed and designed and maintained. And well, that's really what the whole purpose of the Septic Smart thing is to have a week where the different partners that we have in the state and the EPA are all trying to get individual septic system owners to, it's dead, oh.
Keep talking,
I
Art.
thought it was a public service thing, but I couldn't be heard.
No.
But anyway, so there's an effort by the EPA to have something called Septic Smart Week, and so there's a proclamation that we've asked you to consider. And really what we're doing in conjunction with that is offering a bunch of septic system classes to the septic system owners in Thurston County. And there's 4 of them coming up. The first one comes up next week, and there's a brochure or a flyer. I don't know if the camera can get it or not.
No, keep it still. Don't move it. Check.
And I've got other copies for the people in the back.
People can't read. All right.
And the classes are on September 13th and September 19th and the 25th and the 27th, and their locations throughout the county. And if people want to register for those classes, they can either go online, or they can give us a phone call, or they can send an email to us. And the information is also on the back here. I actually thought ahead and printed out things so that people, if the camera can get that, they can look at all those things.
No, they can't. Okay.
But to sign up for the septic classes, they can give us a call at 360-867-2577, or they can email Jennifer Johnson. And again, the classes are basically just how to tell people how to know about their septic systems, how to monitor and maintain them, how to make good choices when they hire contractors. They aren't the in-depth classes that we offer within Henderson and Nisqually, but they do make people sharp or informed consumers. And if people do call and register in advance, what we also do is we pull all the records that we can find for their septic systems so that they can know what they've got, and then we also, our staff are there so they can answer questions about the particular types of systems they have and how they can be best monitored and maintained. And so I've attended the classes before just to see what goes on. They're very popular. Staff enjoy doing them. The public seems to really enjoy them. We've done a good job, I think, of matching up the people who enjoy teaching and are good out in the public to do that. So we're hoping that folks will do that. The other thing that the Septic Smart Proclamation does is it all recognizes that this isn't just something that the homeowners are doing, but it isn't just what the health department staff do, but it relies heavily on our septic professionals in the community. So the septic tank pumpers and the monitoring specialists and the maintenance folks and all that, they really are all needed, and folks can call them also if they have concerns and find out about septic systems. So that's really kind of the background of it. In addition to the workshops, if people have questions, that we do have something called a Septic Helpline, and people can call us at that. So I'll hold this up again. The phone number is 360-867-2669. And we also have a general phone number that folks can call if they want to have just general monitoring and maintenance questions. So those are the things we are doing that a lot of them we have going all the time. We're fortunate again that we were able to get some grant funding to help put on these 4 workshops this month, and we hope people will attend.
Do you have questions for Art?
Well, no, but I would comment that for the viewing public out there, when your septic system quits working, that's when you really appreciate people that are the professionals, I guess, like Art and others that are working on this. So I know we take things for granted a lot of times, but just remember Art when it quits working.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll take any compliment again.
It is a compliment. That's a compliment, Art.
The phone number that you gave out can people call? Is there also a loan program or something they can get information on?
Right. We also, there is a low-interest loan program that the county participates in, and if they want to give us a phone call, I didn't bring my phone number for that one, unfortunately, but if they go online, if you type in Thurston County Septic Systems or Thurston County Environmental Health, if you Google that, you'll get to our webpage, and over on the right, there's a column with all sorts of information about septic systems, and they can find out about the loan program.
Good,
That's actually run by a special credit union called Craft 3. We participate in it because
That's C-R-A-F-T?
T3, like Craft 3,
Okay.
and they do a good job. We actually used to run the program ourselves, but we kind of turned it over to them a few years ago because they do a good job, and it allowed us to work on some other things. So that's it. The other piece of this is that the reason for monitoring and maintaining the systems, again, besides the public health issue, if you look at the way we've named the classes, we call it Septic Sense, and if you look carefully, you'll see that's a dollar sign. And what there really is a big investment in people's backyard or their front yard with their septic system, and if they fail, they can cost tens of thousands of dollars to repair. And so these classes, besides helping avoid the problem that Commissioner Edwards talked about where things don't flush, we want to help them protect their investment. Again, because proper maintenance can add years and years to the life of the septic system and avoid those unfortunate costs of having to repair it, and then people won't have to find out really what that Craft 3 program's about because their system will continue to function. So again, that's what this is all about. We're hoping that people can attend.
Thank you. That was it.
2 quick questions from me, Art. Yep, 53,000 you mentioned, right? Is
About 53,680 actually is the latest total.
All right, I'm gonna call you out on it. 680. That's in the unincorporated portion of the county.
That's everything. That includes all septic systems, including the cities. So we do have jurisdiction. You as the Board of Health have jurisdiction within the cities. The majority of the systems are in the unincorporated county or the urban growth area. I think there's about 7,000 within the cities proper.
And I want you to repeat that volume again of waste.
It's about 12 million gallons per day.
12 million a day. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, and is this Septic Smart Week just for Thurston County? Is it nationwide?
It's a national proclamation, and it's also the governor of the state of Washington has proclaimed next week to be Septic Smart Week.
All righty. And do you have the proclamation?
No, I don't have one,
You
no.
have one?
It'll be a big party for everybody.
Okay, we'll read it next week.
Oh, here, I do have one.
Yes.
Thank you. But I have a question. The 53,000 plus septics, those are known septics. Are there septic systems out there we don't know about, we suspect?
There might be a few, but a few years ago, with the help of our friends over at the Geodata Department, our staff and them actually have gone through and pretty much identified all of them, all the properties that are developed that are outside of sewer. We've identified the septic systems. We may not know all the details about them, but we know pretty much which ones have them. And it's taken a few years. It took a few years to do that. At one point, we thought we had about 70,000, and we've fine-tuned things, and now we know we're pretty darn sure it's pretty close to 53,680.
Pretty close.
Because I know at one time we had 72,000 down, right?
Yeah, that was some guesstimate that we made. It was obviously very high.
You and I used to go back and forth on that one, right? Okay, so on Henderson Inlet,
Yes.
talk about how well we're doing on Henderson in just in a minute or so, just because we pay attention to how septic plays a role in our community, right?
So as you know, the water quality in Henderson Inlet has improved fairly significantly over the past several years. Since 2010, the number, or 366 acres of shellfish harvesting area has been opened as a result of improvements in water quality, and maintaining and finding septic system failures and maintaining septic systems is a part of that, along with stormwater improvements and animal keeping and other things. There's been a small loss. We went 30 acres the wrong way here recently, but we're working on that. But that's, I think, a testament to what happens when the community puts its minds to try to solve a problem, trying to improve water quality, including maintaining septic systems. So that's a really good news. The 7,600 or so septic systems in Henderson Inlet, about 86% of the people are properly monitoring and maintaining them, which is a really high rate.
And we just renewed our commitment to doing this.
And you just renewed the program, so it's got another 10 years. Then we'll take a look at it again to see if it should be modified or tinkered with or whatever. I should say someone will. I hope that I hope I've retired within 10 years.
We'll have septic week for you, okay?
That was 53,000, how many?
680.
680, according to Joel, our data master.
80, okay. Thank you.
All right.
Yes,
I guess just quickly, I'd like to point out, being we're taking this effort to recognize the importance of taking care of your waste properly. I just want to send an encouraging note of support to our friends in Canada. That you mentioned that we handle 12 million gallons a day here in Thurston County. For the last 100 years, they've been dumping 40 million gallons a day of raw, untreated sewage from Victoria into the Strait of Juan de Fuca. That is not counting the whole Fraser River Industrial Complex, about 100 miles of lake activity. And I know now they are taking on an effort to correct that.
Yep, they are.
But the latest article that I read said that even when they get that up and running, it's going to be continuing for another 10 years after that. So they've got a long ways to go, and I'm commending them for at least finally stepping forward and getting away from being a third world septic system.
Thank you there, Commissioner Edwards. What else you got, Art?
Well, that's it. So
Let's go with the proclamation.
okay, thank
I
you.
still find it ironic, this is number 2 on the agenda.
Yeah, number 2. I was going to also say that we did invite the industry professionals to be here, but as you might imagine, they're still busy this time of year, so none of them
Yeah.
are attending, unfortunately.
All right, here we go. Septic Smart Week. Whereas Thurston County's mission is to create a community that promotes health, commerce, and environmental protection with transparency and accountability. And whereas proper septic system use and routine care helps avoid costly septic system repairs and protects the investment that homeowners have in their septic systems. And whereas septic systems that are properly designed and maintained are vital to protecting public health, our invaluable drinking water, lakes, rivers, streams, Puget Sound, and our shellfish industry, which produces almost 6 million pounds of shellfish each year. And whereas there are nearly 53,680 septic systems in Thurston County that treat and dispose of almost 12 million gallons of sewage per day. Whereas Thurston County's on-site system professionals and environmental health division staff use their expertise in the design, installation, maintenance, and regulation of septic systems in our county. And whereas the Environmental Protection Agency and the Governor of the State of Washington have declared September 17th through 21st, 2018 as Septic Smart Week to increase awareness and highlights the need for proper septic system maintenance across the state. And whereas the Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Department is conducting free septic sense workshops in September to teach people how to prolong the life of their septic systems and learn about loans and grants for septic systems, repairs, and replacement. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Thurston County Board of Health hereby proclaims the week of September 17th through 21st, 2018 as Septic Smart Week, and encourages Thurston County septic system owners to learn about their septic systems and ask for all residents of Thurston County to join us in this special observance that contributes to a thriving, hopeful, healthy communities where all people are supported and our environment is protected. Dated or adopted by the Board of Health the 11th day of September 2018. There you have it. Okay.
Sorry, thank you.
You gotta clap about it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Art.
Okay, well, thank you.
All the efforts you've done over the number of years, keeping us informed, educated, on track, you and the team, Shelley, everybody's involved in public health and social services. It really does make a difference, and thank you so much for
Okay,
what
well,
you do.
thank you. Thank you very much.
All righty, so I'm going to take the chair's prerogative and move number 5 up one because we have a special guest, and I want to put them before the next thing just because it makes sense. So I'm going to invite Gretchen Thaler to the podium, and we have guests here from the Nurse Family Partnership to give us a little bit of update in question and answers.
Hi, thank you, Commissioners, for having us and allowing us to do an update on Nurse Family Partnership. My name is Gretchen Thaler. I'm the Maternal Child Health Manager, and I co-supervise our program with Lindsay Sund over here, who's getting our PowerPoint up and going. So for those who may not know, Nurse Family Partnership is an evidence-based home visiting program in which a registered nurse partners with a pregnant mother to provide support, information, and resources for her and her baby and family until her baby turns 2. In January of this year, we became a tri-county regional site. Our regional partnership across 3 counties is the first of its kind in the state, and it's taking vital and effective steps towards improving the lives of the most vulnerable children in our communities. We have a team of 13 nurses that includes 2 bilingual nurses. So you'll see up on the screen that we have 3 program goals. That's to improve pregnancy outcomes, improve child health and development, and to improve the economic self-sufficiency of a family. Sorry, got it. So how do we do it? So we've got specially trained nurses that are trained in pregnancy, early development, and the NFP model of nursing that work with moms to provide care, information, and advice. The research shows that our work results in healthier pregnancies, a reduction of child abuse and neglect, fewer childhood injuries, and improvements in cognitive and language development, as well as many other cost-saving outcomes to the government and society. Our specially trained nurses offer at least 2 regular home visits every month for 2.5 years. And this is timely because pregnancy outcomes are heavily influenced by prenatal care and also the mother's actions towards her baby in the first 1,000 days from the early pregnancy to the baby's 2nd birthday. So for every dollar invested in NFP, we see a return of up to $6.20. You'll see this, how this works out on the screen. This is a lot of savings to government and societal costs, including healthcare, our Medicaid system, our law and justice system, school systems, workforce, and areas such as TANF and other social programs. So for our 3-county partnership, we're serving Thurston, Lewis, and Mason. We have many outcomes of our program, but I put just 3 in here to share today. We're seeing over the last year a 25% reduction in cigarette smoking among the NFP moms during pregnancy. Our immunization rates for NFP toddlers are over 97% at 2 years. That's much higher than the Thurston County rate as a whole. And 97% of our NFP mothers report breastfeeding at birth. So since January of 2018, when we became a three-county regional site, we have served 309 mothers and 185 babies. We've had 74 babies that have been born into the program, and we've delivered over 2,628 home visits. This is an increase of 133% in the number of families served over the last year, and a 56% increase in the number of home visits over last year. We are seeing a large increase in the number of referrals and the need in our communities. I'm just going to leave you with that slide. But we have some special guests today, and I'd like to have Amy. Is Amy? one of our other, Amy and Whitney, come up and introduce the moms that they have the pleasure of working with.
Okay, and so Amy is a nurse.
Amy's a nurse, and this is Whitney. She's one of our nurses. So why don't maybe we'll start with Whitney, and then Amy will come in.
Sure. Who's,
My
hold the
name's,
mic up just a little bit. There you go.
my name's Whitney Myers, and I'm one of the nurses working with NFP in Thurston County. And this is one of our new moms in our program that I've had the privilege of working with. This is Laura and her beautiful son, Lucas.
Lucas.
Lucas,
Oh,
yeah.
Lucas, yeah.
Uncle John here.
Hello. Sure, Laura. Are you going to speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Come on up to the mic. Yeah, get closer to the mic and just tell us what's on your mind about the program, how you like it, why you like it or not, or what's going on.
Briefly penned this earlier. Well, he was napping, so mom
Yeah.
brain. I'm sorry, it's not the best.
Not a problem.
When I found out I was expecting last summer, I was excited and I was terrified. His father and I did not know what we were going to do. We didn't know how to raise a baby. We had been told for a long time we would never be able to have children. And so this was just, we didn't know what to do. We'd never paid attention to what parents did because we weren't ever going to be parents. And I quickly got lined up with WIC. And WIC then sent me over to the Nurse Family Partnership. And it was the best thing that ever happened. I was able to travel through a lot of the anxieties of being pregnant and terrified by having help. I could text them questions saying, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. We had one ultrasound say he had a cyst on his brain, and I was terrified. And I was able to get information through this program that told me not to worry and helped me advocate and get the right tests. And in the end, he ended up being fine. We had an emergency C-section, and I wasn't able to leave the hospital for 5 days. I could barely walk. And Whitney came to the hospital and sat with me and answered questions and helped line me up with ideas on how to properly breastfeed him and what I was going to do when I got home with him. He's had some pretty bad stomach issues, and throughout it all, I'll get terrified. I don't know what to do, and I message her, and she calms me down, and she helps me think of how to best help him. And I know a lot of other mothers don't have that in their lives, and I just don't know what I'd do without it.
Are you able to just kind of give a little background on your relationship with the nurse and how, I mean, you mentioned a couple examples of there, but just how that's helped you as a mom?
I have postpartum anxiety, and being able to message Whitney when I have something going on has really made a big difference in my life. It's calmed me down. Having the support and knowing that she can refer me to resources, like the family support center downtown is something that she's told me about. She tells me about wet wipes or dry tykes and wet wipes, or I can't think of the name of the program, but there's different places I could go and get things I need. And her just being there to support me and tell me I'm doing the right thing has just meant the world.
Right.
She came in a little later in my pregnancy because Lindsay ended up opening up her realm to a different area of work and not working with me. And so I got Whitney, and I'm just so happy. They are both such amazing nurses.
Great. And just for the audience, Whitney, how many clients do you have on any given day or week? Just kind of get an idea of what your caseload is.
I have going on 19 clients now as a .75 position.
0.75.
Yeah, that'll be a full caseload for me. So typically about 4 to 5 visits a day.
Wow.
On a busy day, so.
And she still gets back to my texts.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you and congratulations. And I'm
you.
glad the program works for you. And do you have any comments or questions of Laura?
They've probably all heard me say this before.
Well,
but,
hold on.
you
You
know,
can say it again.
kids are 30% of our population, but they're 100% of our future, and we better get it right. So thank you for participating in the program, because your child will benefit, as
already
will
has.
you, I would hope.
What NFP does is just shy of, well, it's wonderful what NFP does. Because you save a parent, a mom, single parent, whatever, you're saving a child, which is, I mean, it's just vital. You can't put dollars and cents to that. It's so vital what you nurses, what you do for the public, you know, for moms. Just the anxiety piece alone is critical. And I'm so proud to be a part of this. I wouldn't have known about it, never knew about it. But now as a commissioner, I hear about it and I can do something policy-wise to help support that. And it's very fulfilling. I love doing that. Just love it. And for that reason alone, the babies, you know, the crying and the happiness and whatnot.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. We're going to hear from another guy.
Well, now that she has me sweating.
No, is that right?
My name is Katie,
Hi,
and
Katie.
Amy Longmire is the nurse I was paired up with through TANF. My husband and I were living up north in King County, and he had promised his oldest daughter that we would move down within a year after his wife and him split up. And about 5 weeks before we moved, we found out we were pregnant. And she was a fertility med baby. We weren't expecting first try to work. And about the same time, he got injured at work. So he went on L&I time loss. We had to move, and about a week after we moved down here, I was put on bed rest. And luckily, I was matched up with Amy because I had no resources down here. My whole family was up 2 hours north of me. I didn't have any doctors down here. The doctor that helped us get pregnant was 2 hours away. So it was tricky, and I'm older. I was 35, and I have Sjogren's, which is an autoimmune disorder, which automatically put me in high risk between gestation or maternal morbidity or whatever they call it, gravidarium, or I'm an old mom. So I was high risk, and it helped having someone to bounce, you know, is this a symptom I should be worried about? Because I had hyperemesis, I was losing weight. It was a difficult pregnancy. And I was around 23 weeks, I was diagnosed with gestational hypertension, which they knew was heading towards preeclampsia. And so Amy was really vital in like, is this a blood pressure I need to go in for, or just call or keep track of? And then at 28 weeks, I was hospitalized for hospital bed rest, and she was induced at 30 weeks and came 10 weeks early. Amy also visited in the hospital and was one of the first people to get to hold Addie. She was only 3 pounds at birth.
Oh, my word.
And she spent 8.5 weeks in the NICU, and Amy came up to visit twice. After we were discharged, she had quite a few health issues that kept us up north where there was more doctors near the Tacoma area, Seattle Children's, because she's got GI issues and allergies and fun stuff I had no idea how to handle. But what I was telling Amy was that she did such a good job helping me learn to advocate for myself while I was pregnant, because some of the local doctors I was seeing were trying to write off my preeclampsia as just white coat syndrome. Your blood pressure is high because you're nervous. And I was like, no, there's something else going on. And so I took the step to go to Tacoma General the morning of my induction because my blood pressures were so high. I knew that's where she was going to be transferred anyway, given the gestation. And I was right, and she's here, and she's doing great. She's caught up completely on milestones and percentiles. She's trying to walk. She's talking.
Wow.
She's 13 months old now, and she might be tiny, but she is all the toddler.
Brings to life, right?
Yeah. Well, very opinionated.
That's good. All righty. So if I can just ask Amy, tell a little bit about how one gets involved, the selection, because I wish we had an army of nurses out there, but it just isn't happening, unfortunately, right?
Yes.
And then maybe just the day-to-day rigors of what a family partnership nurse goes through.
Great questions. Yes. So we're funded under different grants. A majority of my clients are clients that are on the TANF program. So I get a lot of referrals from DSHS.
Okay.
So that's a majority of that's about half of my caseload. I have 14 clients that are on TANF.
Wow.
Of the 27 that I currently have.
Do you have a 27 client caseload?
Yes.
Oh, my word.
Yes,
Okay.
it's
Wow.
a little on the large side, but I just
It is.
graduated one right before I came here, so.
Okay, great.
Down to 26. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question?
Just what A day in the life of a nurse family
Oh, my
partnership nurse.
goodness.
Yeah. I mean, there's stresses on you and why
Oh.
you got involved, all the benefactors or whatever, just kind of what goes on, and because we're doing other things in life, but you're doing the greatest part of it, taking care
Yes.
of babies, right?
Yes, though definitely the best part of this job is
You
the
bet.
babies and the families. It's a very busy job. Like Whitney, on a busy day, I tend to see 4 to 5 families. And you're just constantly on the go, constantly with the emails and questions and texts with our families and questions and trying to research because things change so rapidly. Trying to keep up on referrals from our different resources and people in the community.
Do you travel from 4 corners of the county, or does everybody meet you? How does it kind of work?
We travel. I've had families as far out as Clear Lake and Yelm. I currently have 2 families that live up in the Capitol Forest. So that's always an adventure. I get on those roads and I'm in the car, like, I'm going to make it up that dirt road today. I'm going to make it up that gravel. We're going to find a way. I've definitely had them as far as like Tumwater, down in Tenino. So it's an adventure because they're always going through so many challenges at home sometimes that you'll get a text message, I'm on my way to Yelm, and they're like, I'm so sorry, I can't be there right now. Can you meet me at the library instead? Or can you come meet me at my friend's house? And it's like, all right, I'm on my way, because that's
all the
how we have to
logistics
do
and
it.
coordinations and oops and all that, right?
It feels like a game of chess most days, where you just kind of don't know. You have your week lined up, and it could go any way possible with people. I'm so sorry, I forgot I have a doctor's appointment, or I have to be at school, or just things happen, unfortunately, especially with the clientele that we work with, that things come up unexpected, or life gets real challenging real fast sometimes.
But there's graduations, right?
There's graduations,
Yeah.
yes. And so I sent a 2-year-old off into the world with his wonderful mom and dad, and
Fantastic.
yes.
Wow. Any particular questions for Amy?
They don't want, I don't want to sound like a broken record.
No.
Those folks, you do great. Thank you very much,
Thank
Amy,
you.
for everything.
Thank you.
I have a question, Amy. That do you deal not 18, 19-year-olds, but you deal with young teen moms and or homeless families, moms?
Under my grant, I generally work with very few teenagers.
With what?
I personally work with very few.
Very few.
Our nurse, Kathy, though, almost her whole entire caseload is teens and young families. Mine tend to be low income, down the middle a little bit more, but they can run all over the gamut. I've had families anywhere from 16 all the way up to 40 having first-time babies and under some pretty hard circumstances. And yes, we've definitely had many homeless and insecure housing, even if they're not currently homeless, just bouncing and trying so hard to find solid, secure, safe housing here in Thurston County. It's been a big issue.
So is that something you also kind of help guide them towards a resource and to
Yes.
get them sorted out?
We do as much as we possibly can, trying to connect them to our housing resources that we have here in Thurston County to support them through the Family Support Center mainly.
That's heroic to do that for kids.
I know.
Do that for, I mean,
It
kids,
makes my
having
heart
kids.
go crazy.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Kathy, too.
Thank you so much, yeah. All righty, so anything, Gretchen, last words? Thank you for bringing your little one in. So darn cute.
Just want to introduce a couple other people.
Sure.
For one thing,
Get that
our
bottle.
one of our newest nurses, Cecilia, is over there in the audience, and she's one of our bilingual nurses, and she is working half-time in Lewis County, half-time in Thurston County.
I was gonna give the wave.
And
Who
then
else?
also, I'd like to quickly introduce, this is Matthew Richardson. He is our
Matthew.
new National Service Office Program Developer, Government Affairs Manager.
Oh, out of Colorado?
And, uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
And
You're famous, wow.
he is replacing Tony, who was
Yeah.
previously in that role. And the exciting thing about Matthew is that he is now a Thurston County resident.
That's
so,
even better, yeah.
so,
We knew to get you one way or the other, babies or not.
so we're just super excited that he's here, and it's nice to have somebody local. And
You bet.
he's got a big, seven states that he covers.
Wow.
But he's living here in Thurston County. So.
Yeah, that's what we want. You had a question, sure?
Well, maybe we should let Matthew know that we not only take an interest from a budgetary standpoint, I believe all of us have been out on ride-alongs?
Oh, I've been 2 or 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
So, boy, you don't appreciate it until you get out there and see it firsthand with your, you know, right in there, seeing what
With the client.
the
and nurse
whole
rela-
partnership program really entails. And we've all done that, so.
You're absolutely right. Day number 6 for me was with Kathy, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I definitely understand. I'd understood the model, I understood the work from the outside, but until you're there in the home and understanding the strength of the relationship that gets built between the nurse and the mother, the way that they're able to provide guidance, assessments, encouragement, just through the most natural of relationships. That's how you really understand the good of the program.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Matthew, very much.
I'm here for whatever help I can provide.
Sure, thank you so much. And Gretchen, just repeat, it's 13 nurses, and I didn't hear the ones at the schools. Is that an additional 2 or?
There's 13 NFP nurses total. 2 of them are bilingual.
Oh, bilingual,
Yeah.
okay, great, sure. Thank you. Anything else?
No, just, it's been busy.
I know.
They're a very busy group. Since
So
January we've
all
been.
13 nurses have sort of the same caseload?
So a full-time nurse should carry 25 active clients. So sometimes they have clients that may be, what we
Not so
call,
active.
yeah, a little missing in action at times,
yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe out of the area for a month or 2. So they'll bump up to, 26, 27, 28. And we also have had a pretty extensive wait list in Thurston County. So
Oh, that's a good question, yeah.
we're all bumping up caseloads just because we're passionate about what we do. We don't want to not serve somebody that really is in
That's
need
a
of it.
need,
So
sure.
yeah. So luckily, I work with fabulous nurses that go above and beyond and are just constantly pushing forward. So
I know you're shy, but tell us how many years you've been doing this.
15 years.
How
so
many?
15.
There you go.
So this January, we actually will celebrate 15 years of NFP here in Thurston County. So it's coming up quickly.
I know.
So
Was that 309 families or children since January this year, in the last 9 months?
309 mothers, what we've seen.
Moms,
There's
okay.
185 babies, but then beyond the 185, we've had 74
73
babies.
or 74 born into the program?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
since January.
Beautiful.
So, and a lot of
Anything
home visits. So.
Before
Yeah.
we walk away, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you and every nurse that's doing it, the clients, Liz and Shelley, the whole program of Nurse Family Partnership is, in our eyes, is #1 no matter what in the country, but I know it's #1 in the state, and we're going to stay that way. So just because of your leadership. Thank you very much, Gretchen.
Well, thank
And
you
a
all
great
for your
picnic, too.
support.
Yeah, a big deal.
Great picnic.
Yes, thank you for coming to our picnic. Our
That
picnic
was
was
fun.
a big success. It was a lot of fun. I think we had, was it 120?
Oh, my goodness.
174 people
To
that
visit
came. So,
on the picnic? Mm-hmm. Oh, my word.
so
And a lot of local restaurants and establishments donated food.
yes. Yeah, so we had
No, yeah.
Olive Garden
Olive
and
Garden.
Olive Garden food,
Molina. Yeah,
Oh, it was
very
great.
generous. So
Mystic
Miss
Muffet-
Moffitt's mystical
cupcakes.
cupcakes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So it was a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gretchen.
Okay, so the next department item is the Thurston Thrives team. This is the Climate and Clean Energy team. And I'm going to ask Liz to step up here. And she is the Division Director of Child, Family, and Community Wellness. And Liz, tell us what it's all about.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would like to introduce to you a familiar face, Crosby Carter.
Oh.
And Crosby is the new director of Thurston Thrives, which, as you know, is a public-private partnership. So Crosby comes to us from the county, and she has a background in housing. I had the pleasure of working with her when she was development director at the United Way of Thurston County, and I was on the board. And additionally, she has studied abroad in Florence. She has her Master's of Public Administration from the Evergreen State College. Go Gooey Ducks.
Go Gooey Ducks.
And
Yep.
I'm gonna let you ask her a couple questions if
Yeah,
you'd
let's
like.
do that. Hello, Crosby. It's good to see you again.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon.
Pull the mic down just a little bit.
sorry.
There you go. That's
Hi.
fine. And tell us who you are and what you do.
How you got
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
So I am born and raised in Thurston County. I'm from Rainier. So this community is my home. It's my passion. My daughter is here, so I'm rooted here.
Yeah.
I graduated from the Evergreen State College technically, but as Liz said, most of my undergrad was in Italy. So I learned how to study international relations and politics. Also, while being a waitress, I got some pretty interesting skills from that. I got my master's in public administration in 2017, so last year, which took a couple of years to get through, which was a really good win for me, which is exciting. My background is looking at nonprofit management and then also local government. You can't really affect change if you're not part of the process working to create it, so that was how I focused my master's studies, was looking at how to be involved in my local community, looking at system changes and where can we really make the most difference. My area of work from the city of Olympia to the county has been around housing policy and data analysis, really looking at what connects us as a community and how do all the pieces fit together. And you can address one area of homelessness, but then you aren't looking at the bigger picture and stepping back and saying, well, what are the other factors contributing to that issue? It's, it's a never-ending process. So that's really where my strength comes from, and I'm really excited to be part of Thurston Thrives. There's so much work going on, so many amazing staff at the county and action teams and leaders part of this project. It's really exciting to see the potential it has and where it's going.
So, questions for Crosby? No? Comments?
No, thank you very much for all you do.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And you were meant to be here.
Fantastic, thank you.
Quick question, just the 30-second overview of Thurston Thrives. Is it what it mean?
Sure. So Thurston Thrives is a public private nonprofit partnership. It looks at improving community health in our county. Countywide, it's a regional approach to saying how do we bring different sectors together to make a bigger impact together than we would separately. So no single organization can solve homelessness, can look at health factors by itself. So what if we bring different sectors, housing, nonprofits, developers, whatever it may be, to that table to really solve the problem together. It's a really innovative way of looking at collectively how to make a bigger impact, so collective impact than we would.
And how often do they meet per month?
So the Coordinating Council meets once a month. The next one is on Monday, the 17th, from 3 to 5 p.m. It's an open meeting, so anybody is welcome to come. There are representatives from each of the cities in the county there, businesses, nonprofit, and that this meeting will be for the first time held at the Thurston EDC building out off of 6th Avenue in Lacey. So SPSCC Lacey campus, or however you think of it, but it's the first time it'll be held there. So it's an exciting opportunity to see what we're doing.
All righty.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Crosby. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
All right, Liz.
And you'll be hearing from Crosby a little bit every month because she will be coordinating and introducing your Thurston Thrive speakers every month. This month, you'll be hearing from Chris Hawkins, who, in addition to being the Community Engagement, Evidence, and Partnerships Manager at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, is also the co-chair of the Climate and Clean Energy Work Group of Thurston Thrives. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Yay, thank you, Liz. Hello, Chris.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
You got some slides for us?
I do indeed. So I'm here to talk with you a little bit about the Climate and Clean Energy Work Group of Thurston Thrives. This group's been in existence from about the latter part of 2015. And a couple of basic points I want to leave you with today are that Thurston County recognizes that climate change is a real phenomenon happening, and that has impacts in our community, on our community, and on the health of our community. And people are coming together in our community to address that issue, but both by adapting to those impacts, but also trying to prevent them from happening in the first place, either preventing the impacts or preventing climate change. So that's the effort that this work group is really undertaking, and it's a big effort, lot to do on it. But I wanted to give you a couple of quick introductory points first about climate change. You take a look at the first slide there, basically shows that there's something called the greenhouse effect, and that is when heat-trapping gases like carbon dioxide build up in the atmosphere. That traps some of the sun's heat as it reflects back into the atmosphere from having struck the surface of the Earth. In general, that's a good thing. It maintains our atmosphere at generally livable conditions for people and other organisms. However, in the last 200 or so years, there's been something that's kind of accelerating that warming effect and building up more of those greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, trapping more of the sun's energy, and leading to a general increase in the global mean temperatures on the planet. And that causes some substantial changes and impacts. And so I'm just going to flip through some of the key impacts of this. But scientists generally refer to that as the runaway greenhouse effect that we're experiencing now. And that is having effects that we want to try to avoid or prevent if we can. Among the local effects of that runaway greenhouse effect are warmer temperatures, and we can expect more heat waves as a result of that, and to some degree poorer air quality because the increased heat generates some challenging conditions for people with compromised immune systems. It also can lead to things like forest fires, which then impair air quality. We can expect heavier rain events, more severe storm events, and that leads to effects like flooding, landslides. And because there's a phenomenon of melting of global or polar ice caps and glaciers around the world, at this point we're seeing rising sea levels. What that leads to is a variety of different health effects, and our department's been looking at that and aware of that for the better part of a decade now. But you can see some of those listed on the right-hand part of that slide. We're concerned about increased disease vectors in our community as a result of the changing climate. And we're concerned about the effects of flooding. We're concerned about impaired air quality having effects on our local population. So just some images that I think will illustrate some of that just from the last couple of years include some of the high tide events in Olympia that are creeping up higher and higher each year. And so this is creating some flooding conditions in the downtown that can also back up some of the combined sewer and stormwater systems in the places like downtown Olympia, and that can lead to contamination. Some storm events have happened that have been fairly severe in their local impact in terms of their effects on infrastructure, but also on people's lives and livelihoods. And we've had actually some wildfires in Thurston County. Just last summer, we had some severe wildfires that were threatening people's property and also their lives. And this clearly impacts our residents, and it's something that we should be paying attention to and doing something about. So who's involved with this work team? It's something that kind of grew out of the Environment Action Team of Thurston Thrives that started way back at the very start of Thurston Thrives. But this group spun off from that Environment Action Team after it established a strategy that included clean air and a stable climate as one of the main goals for maintaining environmental quality in Thurston County. So without good quality of physical environment, it's hard to have healthy people. We need that supportive environment, that supportive conditions that creates, that leads to healthy people, healthier people in our community. So this group kind of assembled themselves out of the Environment Action Team of Thurston Thrives, and it's really a shared work group of multiple action teams. But you can see here some of the sectors that have been involved with this. It includes not just some of the usual suspects of local governments and nonprofits who have an environmental interest, but also some local businesses, the Economic Development Council, Puget Sound Energy has been at the table for these meetings, and a bank has been there. So we've had a kind of diverse set of partners coming together to look at this issue and develop its own strategy map. So this is the really complicated version that's hard to read, so I'm going to skip right past that and go to one that's a little more simple to read and understand. But you can see here that this work group then narrowed in on that stable climate focus of the Environment Action Team and tried to turn that into a strategy that will help our community move forward in addressing climate change. This includes two main areas. One is adapting to climate change, in other words, anticipating and expecting that there will be some impacts. What can we do about that? But also trying to reduce the emissions contribution that comes from Thurston County so that we're doing our part to prevent climate change in the first place. And that means looking at a variety of sectors that are involved in creating those emissions. And I'm happy to say that we're making some progress on those things. So one of the things that a couple of things that have been accomplished in the last couple of years, one of which is that we participated, a number of members of that work team participated in a climate adaptation plan that Thurston Regional Planning Council put together. That was completed at the end of last year and adopted earlier this year by the member organizations of Thurston Regional Planning Council. So local governments have now adopted that, and that's setting the course for how we can anticipate and do some things to prevent some of the worst impacts of climate change, so the adaptation part. But we've also, as a work group, we provided a recommendation to local governments, including the Board of County Commissioners, to participate in a regional climate mitigation plan. And we were really pleased by the responsiveness of the commission to that, and we're proud to see that Thurston County is participating alongside the 3 largest cities in Thurston County on that climate mitigation plan. And now phase 1 of that climate mitigation plan has been completed. And that meant trying to look at what can we do to set some targets for our community to reach for in the future in terms of that emissions reduction aspect of responding to climate change. So the board looked at that question over this last few months, and I think it was at the end of July that you took action to set those targets as the ones that you would work on in common with those 3 cities in that climate mitigation planning effort. So we're trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from Thurston County sources by 45% by the year 2030, and that's coming in under 2015 levels, and by 85% by the year 2050. And the other jurisdictions have also now approved that, with the exception of City of Olympia, but there's a story there I'll get to in a moment. And so we're moving forward on that, and that's good news for our community in the long run. Another accomplishment of the work team was to have updated these emissions information on Thurston County sources to the most current information that we have and the best information, so it's local information. So Thurston Climate Action Team has done this inventory since the year 2010 data, and they just completed their 2016 data. And this gives us a picture of where the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from in Thurston County. And you can see it on this image here, broken out by the built environment, sort of what's coming from buildings, and what's coming from transportation sources. In other words, when we get in the car or use another vehicle that burns fuel, that's pumping carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We're needing to be aware of those things so we can look at what are the most effective ways of bringing down the emissions in Thurston County. And you can see there we're making some progress in some areas, and in some areas we're still not driving down those emissions to the level that we should or need to reach those targets. So that's what needs to be looked at in that climate mitigation planning effort. So what will that next step in that effort look like? You'll be hearing a briefing from me and others next week on the phase 2 of the climate mitigation plan. This is to try to put actions and strategies to those targets. What can we do locally that will help us reach the targets that we've now set as a community? It will be looking at an analysis of those, the benefits in terms of emissions reduction, what are the costs, looking at the comparatives of those different strategies that we could pursue as a community. It will also look at where is there some overlap with the climate adaptation plan, so we can look at where there are multiple wins that can come from pursuing a particular action. An example would be planting more trees or maintaining urban forestry or better forest cover around the county is an example of an adaptation strategy, because that's going to help cool conditions in our community in the event of future heat. But it also works as a mitigation strategy, because trees also absorb carbon dioxide, so they become a sink for that carbon that our community is producing. So that's just one example of a co-benefit of adaptation that also works for mitigation. The mitigation plan is really important because it puts everybody on the same page and sets out a schedule for how we accomplish these things together, and puts some milestones out there that we will strive toward. So it's getting a little more detail and a little more flesh on the bones of how we can achieve these targets for our community. That will come back to the jurisdictions in the form of both a shared strategy effort of what are actions that all parties in this effort, the cities and the county, need to take, but also some individual jurisdiction level actions that will be more tailored to what the county can do and what the cities can do to help us achieve this stuff. So that's just a quick overview of what's coming up in phase 2, and that will require some further thought and consideration by the board, and hopefully action to join that phase 2 effort through an interlocal agreement like phase 1. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the other benefits that come along with this. They're noted on the strategy map for the Climate and Clean Energy Action Team. But in addition to, maybe possibly addressing both adaptation and mitigation of climate change, the strategies that we're looking at can have other benefits such as economic development, because when we talk about trying to replace dirtier energy sources or greenhouse gas emitting energy sources with cleaner energy sources, that means that new sectors of energy production need to be built up. So there's job creation that comes along with that. In addition, and I think this slide indicates that that clean energy sector is potentially a $3 trillion sector in the United States. But in our community, there's potential for that to develop new businesses and create more employment. So it is having an economic development benefit. It also obviously has health benefits when we try to replace some of those emissions with cleaner technologies or different ways of doing things. We can often improve our air quality, so that's going to have a benefit to the respiratory health of all residents. And some of them that I like to do myself, such as replace my automobile trips with bicycling or walking, also have additional health benefits such as getting physical activity into your day. So just some examples of things where there are a whole host of benefits that come with accomplishing the things that will be seen in a mitigation plan. So with that, I just want to conclude by saying that we've got good partners involved with this work team, and it's going to continue to help to shape that mitigation plan. I expect that a number of the work team members will seek to be part of a stakeholder group that will be working on that plan. Probably some of your staff, like me, will be involved with helping to develop that plan. And there's actually a panel of policymakers that we are anticipating will be part of this planning effort as well. So we'll be trying to engage some of your participation, your leadership in that as the plan is put together. And so the work group of Thurston Thrives will be heavily engaged, I think, in the development of the mitigation plan. As I mentioned, this does connect to a number of Thurston Thrives action teams. We hope to continue to involve people like members of the Housing Action Team, the Economy Action Team, as well as Environment and Community Design have been some of the key participants so far. I expect that will be a continued effort by that action team to keep working on it. So we're ready to help support that and look forward to working with you to accomplish these targets. And with that, I'll turn it back to you if you have any questions about.
Great presentations. We do have a couple questions, yeah.
Chris, do you interact with any of the other jurisdictions around, like maybe Kitsap County or Pierce County, and kind of share ideas and what we're doing and what they're doing, and put that stuff together as far as sharing information? Because I kind of think we're doing pretty good. I'm not saying we're solving the world's problems, but incrementally, I think we're making headway. Even just merely not traveling to do all the inspections that we were doing. We're using this whole e-inspection process and let citizens send us in little video clips of a footing or whatever their project is that they're working on. I mean, yeah. I can't tell you how many miles that's going to save from staff driving. Mm-hmm. And that's fuel consumption. Kind of goes back to what you said about riding your bike, because I know you talk the talk and walk the walk. I know that. You know, you're a perfect example. So do you share information like that?
The answer to your question is yes. We do look at the other jurisdictions and what models they may have or ideas that they've developed. That was part of helping to put together this proposal for the Phase 2 effort on the climate mitigation plan. There are some other locations here in the Northwest that have already progressed and have a climate mitigation plan already developed. So we have looked at some like Ashland, Oregon as an example of that, a city that's done that. The work team in Thurston Thrives actually did reach out to King County, and the multiple cities in King County, because they're engaged in a very similar effort to what Thurston County is doing. And they have developed a climate action plan in King County that we're looking at as an example to see if we can borrow and steal some of their ideas, put those to good use. And you're absolutely right that we need to look at county operations. How can we make those more efficient as one of the strategies to combat and prevent climate change? So I think we definitely will be looking at things like how do we substitute electronic means of communicating for maybe some of the what would have required vehicle trips in the past. And I think the county's doing a pretty good job of looking at ways to increase that efficiency.
Are you exploring things like, I don't know, I'm kind of an advocate for putting yield signs up in those areas that are safe to have a yield sign, just because of the loss. There's so much kinetic energy lost from a dead stop versus a 5-mile-an-hour roll through that I think it could save a lot of fuel. And I'm just curious if other jurisdictions are thinking along any of those kind of lines.
You know, I haven't encountered that particular solution, but I think everything's on the table in terms of putting this plan together, and we'll be definitely reaching out to you and other commissioners and elected officials, as well as members of the public, to provide us with as many ideas as they can, so that we can sort through that and look at what's going to have the biggest bang for the buck in that plan as it's ultimately put together.
More yield signs?
No, you don't need to yield any more time. I'll yield my time.
That's how you bring California here, I think.
We can't dodge the issue, so we have to deal with it as best we can. And we shouldn't look back, we should look forward. We shouldn't look in, we should look out. And we shouldn't look down, we should look up. And that's the only way we're going to deal with this. And to that effect, on Monday afternoon or Monday evening, there's an elected sea level rise workshop at Lot.
Oh, for the electeds?
Yeah, for electeds, yeah. So that's going to be very interesting. But it's people and policymakers dealing with the issues as best we can. But again, you lead by example.
Great, thank you very much.
I do have one comment. Does the action team talk about climate migration in the sense of how it's defined of areas, larger areas, such as areas that are hit by hurricanes and say like California with fires, where populations start to decide how to migrate from that because of the climate issue, and happen to pick Northwest and happen to pick North Thurston County, and I'm kind of exaggerating to make a point, but you see where I'm going with this. You don't have to talk about it now, but I would be super interested in being part of that conversation. So.
I think that was an issue that definitely got some discussion and consideration during the climate adaptation planning effort, because it is really about something that's an impact or a result from climate change, is that some regions become a lot less desirable or hospitable, and it causes people to uproot and move if they're in a hurricane zone.
Having a volcano is exactly the answer. But.
So yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk about how the Northwest would be a receiving region for a lot of people who are trying to migrate away from impacts of climate change.
Sure.
I don't think we got into that very far in terms of a strategy to address it. It's kind of something that's a macro scale issue that we hope will be looked at and addressed.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any other?
Thank you.
Anything else? No, thank you very much, Chris. As always,
Thanks,
very
Chris.
professional, and we love hearing what you got to say.
You're very welcome.
You bet. So the next item on the agenda is Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization, and I've asked Mr. Mark Freeman, who's the CEO, to come to the podium to talk a little bit about Thurston County's and Mason County's Behavioral Health Organization update, basically, because there's some changes coming in 2020 at the managed care organization, and I just want to get a little insight on where we're at and where we think we're going for the general public. So, Mark?
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Mark Freeman, CEO for Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. Joe Avalos, the Chief Operating Officer. But I just want to mention that Gretchen offered me $20 if I would do a song at the beginning of my presentation. So, no. Oh, never mind.
I'll give you the $20 not to do that.
I was hoping.
25, actually, yeah. We have a bidding war here.
We can do the.
So this is your behavioral health approach, huh?
The karaoke routine again. Okay. First to start with, Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization is a funded entity from the state, not from the state really, by the state. We are essentially a managed care organization through public funding to provide behavioral health care for both Thurston and Mason County. What this means is we maintain a service network of providers to make sure that the full continuum of care be available, works effectively, efficiently, provides quality care for both mental health and substance use services. This is in both Mason and Thurston County and covers the range of everything from involuntary inpatient care to crisis services to diversion services with the jail to straightforward outpatient treatment services, the whole gamut of what's possible to help. What ends up being about serving 13,000 individuals per year. This is about a 30% bump since we were an RSN and we became a behavioral health organization starting April 2016. Our purpose for this presentation, if you will, is really bring you up to date on how 2018 is rolling along and what some of the issues and what are we looking forward to in the, kind of the near future. Do you want to start with providers?
So good afternoon. Again, my name is Joe Avalos. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the BHO. And first and foremost, one of the big keys for the BHO, since we started in April, was to expand our provider network. We had about 13 contracted providers in the region to deliver both mental health and substance use services, and we're now at over 40. And we've gone as far as the Chehalis region, we've gone to Centralia, since a lot of our residents do go back and forth for work. We also have providers in Pierce County as well. So we've tried to do what we can to just make it easier on our residents to access the needed behavioral health services wherever they can. One of the things that was missing here since 2015 is a local detox. A major local detox provider closed its doors primarily due to funding and other issues, and so we've worked really hard over the past couple of years to try and find a replacement resource, and we've done that with Royal Life Centers located in Lacey. They've served about 300 people for us so far in the last 2 years, which is a huge increase, obviously from not having a provider here since 2015. With the opioid epidemic also ongoing, we've talked to our provider network and listened to our community to talk about what can we do from the treatment side of the house and expanding services. And so we've worked with Evergreen Treatment Center, with Northwest Integrated Health, and with Northwest Resources to improve medication-assisted treatment and allow for more access to that. And that's been great. I think we've had about 200 people in the Thurston-Mason region who now have more access to that. We still need more, but in the interim, that's been a big change in our region. We've implemented mobile outreach teams. That was new to Thurston and Mason counties, and we've been doing that for about a year and a half. We worked with our local provider network, our long existing provider network, that is, to implement new programming. BHR in particular implemented their RITS program, or Recovery Integrated Treatment Services, to focus on the really hard to serve co-occurring population. Those are folks that have both mental health and substance use disorders. They're really just difficult to serve. And then lastly, we worked with Providence St. Peter Hospital and Behavioral Health Resources and other community members to help with services in the community care center downtown. And so we support that by providing flexible funding for intensive case management and prescriber services. One other thing I'll talk about with mobile outreach teams, since those have been in Thurston County and Mason County for the last year and a half. This operates 7 days per week. We've seen about 200 Thurston clients alone thus far, and they work really closely with law enforcement, with community members, and with the local designated crisis responders, which I'll talk about later, to help and have a real presence in the Thurston County region and Mason County regions. So with that, I'll let Mark talk about the triage.
One of the accomplishments we've had this past year or so has been the creation of additional involuntary treatment beds to serve a function primarily working with law enforcement to divert so individuals who are encountering the law enforcement system do not have to go to jail, but rather go to treatment as an option when it's appropriate. All consideration goes into safety, but there's an awful lot of individuals that we work with because we really do, our population that we connect with is the very high utilizer, hard to serve, high risk individuals who have an impact on our emergency rooms, our shelters, what happens on the street. We serve a very extensive list of need in the community, trying to create and build an effective safety net for the community, for both Thurston and Mason counties. One of the main pieces then is the development of this triage facility. We have been able to manage probably this past year about 326 individuals who would have been in jail, instead ended up at the triage facility being provided treatment services. This, I can't do quite a dollar amount on the ROI, the return on investment for the funding spent on providing treatment versus an individual being in jail, but the quality of care, the reduction of recidivism, the chance to provide people the appropriate care in our community is a huge investment that we've been trying to meet. The other services, or where we're moving towards, particularly in terms of involuntary treatment services, is expanding the number of beds we make available. We're in the process right now of building, or I should say the building's there. We're renovating an existing building in Shelton, Mason County. The construction on the first floor is already underway. And we now have funding, thanks to the Department of Commerce, to renovate the second floor. So we'll be totally adding about 32 beds to our stock for individuals that where we can place folks in treatment as an alternative to jail, as an alternative to using the emergency department to help stabilize people so that we can move them back into the community safely. And try to reduce the level of the symptoms becoming exacerbated and essentially moving back into an acute state. So stabilizing people, providing safety net, this is what we do. To even kind of, it's kind of difficult sometimes to understand even what the staff for the BHO does in terms of trying to meet this need. We have folks who the time spent is working with provider agencies, providing essential communication across all systems with the hospital, with the jails, with the agencies. We do with what's essentially called maintain a system of care, both adult and children. So the providers, everybody's talking, everybody's trying to make sure there are no gaps in services. And with the number of people we serve, the difficulty of the individual we serve, this is an essential function, particularly for the local community, because everything we do is connected with local services. We have staff that authorize treatment for involuntary, for inpatient care. We have staff that work and make sure somebody coming out of a detox unit is able to get treatment, moving it to a residential treatment program. We have other things that we have to maintain to exist, such as data systems and financial systems. This all takes quite a bit of infrastructure behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see that maintains this system that provides huge amounts of service on all these different levels to, like I said, about 13,000 people a year. Okay. Where do we go next?
Transition.
That's the last one.
So what's the transition like?
Transition?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Talk
we'll
about
jump ahead on that. The In the wisdom of the state, the laws around providing behavioral health care in the community is changing to what's being called an integrated model. Right now it's primarily a financial integrated model. We hope it moves into where there's more clinical integration. And by that I mean, in 2016, becoming a BHO, a behavioral health organization, instead of a regional support network, we integrated both mental health and substance use, trying to provide greater access to individuals where they, somebody needing treatment services didn't have to, for themselves, figure out what door to go to, what agency to go to. We just wanted them to be able to go into a facility and we would make sure they receive the appropriate type of care. The next step in terms of transition is in 2020, integrating behavioral health care with primary care. This means that the funding that we receive, which is primarily Medicaid, is being combined back with primary care. So the managed care organizations that fund primary care, your basic health care for people on Medicaid, will also now have the funding for behavioral health. So there are no silos between those two funding areas, and you look at the total care of an individual, or kind of more of a health home type of model for an individual going somewhere, should get the full range of everything they need and have it be recognized. So the transition is what happens to the BHO come 2020, where the majority of our funding, probably about 80% of it, moves to the managed care organizations, where they will then be purchasing the behavioral health services, and the BHO will no longer be doing that. What happens to the behavioral health organizations is we become, sorry about the acronyms, but it become an administrative service organization, primarily focused on crisis services. So as an ASO, we will still be funded to maintain the safety net, to work with all those non-Medicaid services that deals with things like crisis, like involuntary treatment, trying to engage the individual prior to them enrolling into treatment. At the harder to reach points, we will still be sort of the local point of access for getting somebody into treatment, dealing with the jails, dealing with the emergency departments, and again, still trying to coordinate care. But the major part of the coordination will work through the managed care organizations and their care coordinators. The transition is important. We will be working with the already contracted managed care organizations, 3 of them, Molina, United, and the Merit Group, that will have now the Medicaid funding. We'll be working with them in terms of trying to still work out the relationship, contractual, and trying to make sure the services that they're funding are adjusted, if you will, to work within our local community to the best benefit of the individuals and with what we need locally. So we will continue to provide that. We'll be working with the managed care organizations to see what services they want us to pick up from that would be delegated to us from their roles, to see how we can best do this in concert with them in this fully integrated model. This is an interesting step for the state, and we are absolutely willing to work with them to try to make this work, where behavioral health will no longer be a carve-out funding source or managed carve-outs that it has been since the 60s. So this is a major change, and will be a pretty good change also for the behavioral health organization.
Sure. I'm going to put you on the spot about DCRs and just talk about them for 1 minute, and just how well they are integrated already from a Thurston Mesa Behavioral Health and the workload they have. Just cap it real quick, because they do outstanding work. And what a DCR is, I said it that way on purpose. So.
Absolutely. So DCR stands for Designated Crisis Responder, and a Designated Crisis Responder are the only folks in this state that can detain somebody against their will due to a mental health or substance use disorder. That is, that they are in danger of, at risk to themselves or others. So we have the DCRs, and we've had them as part of our direct service arm for since February of this year in Thurston and Mason counties. And in May of this year, we won a competitive RFA, or request for applications, with the Greater Rivers region. So that's 5 other counties. So that's, you're gonna have to help me with that. Cowlitz, Lewis, Grays Harbor, Pacific, and Wahkiakum counties. So we have the DCR system for the entire 7-county region, and it is it's been hard. It's a tough job to intervene and go out when law enforcement calls someone and says, we've got somebody here who we think might be a danger to folks. Can you guys please come out and intervene and see if they need to be placed in inpatient behavioral health? And so we have about 20 DCRs on staff that respond 24/7 to the 7-county region. We've seen about a 25% increase just in the Thurston Mason region alone in outreaches. That is to say, we've gone out into the community 25% more than the same time last year with a different provider. So we're doing our best to engage these folks where they're at. We don't want people parked in jails. We don't want people parked in emergency rooms. If we can get out there and meet them where they're at, and we can keep them safer, keep the community safe, keep people safe in their homes if that's where it's appropriate, and or intervene if we have to and send them to inpatient behavioral health. Appropriate treatment is what we're trying to get. So that's been going really well. We have a very fantastic team, and it's still it's still new. We've only been doing this since February, and so we're still learning, but the community has thus far been very receptive, and we're working really hard at maintaining relationships and establishing new ones with the local folks and also with our larger 5-county region. So that's been going really well.
Yeah. Any questions, Mark or Joe?
Boy, do you send somebody out from here, or do you have those individuals stationed around in some of the different jurisdictions?
So we do have 2 satellite offices.
Talking about DCRs?
Yeah.
The DCRs, yes. We have 2 satellite offices, one in Aberdeen and one in Longview.
Okay.
And by statute, the DCRs are supposed to respond within 6 hours typically, but we respond much, much quicker than that.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey,
Good job killing it.
the detox, Royal Life Center in Lacey.
Yes, sir.
That's been up and running for some time now.
Correct. It's primarily been a private agency, and so we had to do some pretty good negotiation with them to accept Medicaid contract and Medicaid publicly funded rates. But they recognize the service to the community and the need, and thus far they've been very good partners for us.
And a couple more questions on that regard. How recently did we conclude or negotiate that with them?
That's only since about, I think, June of 2016, so it's only been a couple of years.
Okay. And so how does somebody, it's still a private, so someone can go in privately into the detox, and do the law enforcement have access to drop people off at a detox, and do you take people to detox? Or can they walk in on their own? Yeah.
So they typically go on their own, or they're referred by our community network. So somebody will say walk into BHR or perhaps walk into an emergency department requesting detox, and they can access it that way. But law enforcement typically doesn't do drop-off.
Doesn't do drop, like the old Tamark days?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would be nice. That'd be the next
Yeah,
step.
it would be nice, yeah.
We have one more question.
No, wait, go ahead.
Oh, that guy's crazy. What are you thinking?
Well, how's this working with the state cutting back on mental health business, I guess, at both their state hospitals, Eastern and Western, and is that having an adverse impact on us at this point, or is that coming down the track yet, or what's going on there?
Good question.
Wow. You have time?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to probably
And we should
take
mention
a while,
True
but-
Blood also in this discussion. There was a decision made by the governor to move Western State Hospital, which also then includes Eastern, from, it's a split entity. Part of it is civil, which are the beds, the involuntary beds that we commit to. And when you go to Western, it's because you're going in for a long-term stay as opposed to the 14-day stay that we manage here locally. They also have the forensic side, which is if somebody's not guilty due to incompetence, they can't stand trial, and yet they're basically gravely disabled, they would go to Western on the forensic bed. Decision was made to essentially by 2022, 23, to no longer have civil beds at Western, and it'd all be a forensic, and all civil beds, both short-term and long-term stay, will be in the community. So that's the process that's begun now, where units are closing, or slowly but closing, where they're moving treatment services and wanting even long-term involuntary stays to be occurring out in the community. Part of that responsibility then, as managed care organizations are coming online, will be to handle this. It's a question of having enough beds and enough facilities and be able to manage them and afford them that makes it difficult. That's part of the business of we're in. That's why we're doing some of this expansion out in Mason to have enough beds, because we're having difficulty moving individuals who are in a short-term stay bed that we have now, moving them out to Western. That's become a barrier. So we need to figure out how to manage them locally, and that's going to be happening throughout the state. And we need to, while there's been some capital money to develop them, having money to continue even the physical plant operations, that's tricky, as well as making sure as funding, Medicaid funding moves over to the managed care organizations, that there's adequate funding for the treatment services as well.
How about when the courts are ordering the evaluation?
That's all
in lieu
part of the
being in
forensic
jail
beds.
and all that. I mean, is that going to be timely with this new process, or is it going to be a longer delay than it's been in the past? I'm thinking about jail beds that are unnecessarily clogged up with mental health issues.
That's an absolute concern here locally on how to manage that, to make sure there are adequate beds, jail beds, for people who need to maintain for the safety issues. There is a number of groups that have that are essentially focusing on that discussion here in the county. I know there's a jail management, bed management group that the criminal justice system is operating, and then we, as the BHO, are involved with also criminal justice system in a meeting pretty much run by prosecuting attorney that is looking at how do we create diversion opportunities, how do we efficiently manage people in terms of who goes up to Western on forensic, how do we bring them back, how do we make sure they stay on the medications. That was today's discussion, is how to make sure there isn't a gap in people who are on medications, that they stop the medication and end up needing more either Western state time or jail time. And so we're spending a lot of time within that, even locally, how to manage that. Will it have an impact on terms of length of stay? Not sure with all these changes. I think the idea of creating more forensic beds by moving the civil out is that there will be more beds available at Western to handle the population, so the evaluations could occur timely and the restoration can move back into the community timely as well.
I guess more to come later.
Oh, this is not a done deal, absolutely. Okay. Yes, sorry about a long response to, but it's a difficult question.
With the governor or the state deinstitutionalizing the civil commitments to be reintegrated into the community, yes, just yes or no? Did that come with any money?
I'm sorry?
Did that come with any money then to help support them in our community?
There has been some capital money this past session that was made available for construction. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes and no.
Oh, okay. More on that later then. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
But that was where some of the funding for the second floor and Mason facility came from, was additional capital money. Oh, okay. The treatment money, and for us, the long-term maintenance and operation, that's pending.
Okay.
You can't do yes and no.
Got it. Okay.
Can't do yes and no, right?
No, I don't do that.
There's a lot going on. I mean,
there is.
It's moving.
Behavioral health, substance abuse, nurse family partnership, septic. But for the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization, as far as I've been with y'all, and Hutch has been in, Commissioner Wolf and Commissioner Jeffries, Drexel, I'm sorry. We've come a long ways, and we're doing great stuff. I know we are, but it's because of you and the 35, 36 other people that are part of this team and the new DCRs. This is how you change the community for the better, and we thank you immensely from the bottom of our heart, and keep up the good work. So.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We have a great BHO management team. It's been wonderful. It's a great family, and we appreciate the board's leadership to allow us to do this work and hopefully do it well for the community. So we appreciate your time with us.
All righty. Thank you so much, Mark and Joe. So the next item on the agenda is number 7. And do you have another health item you want to bring up? Did you comment on it, or is that it?
I'm not going to comment.
How about you?
I got my flu vaccination going in with your article you had in the Olympian, and still waiting for that dadgum shingle thing to come out. We're still way back behind on that one.
Okay. With that, we're going to go to number 8, and I'm going to turn it over to Shelley Slaughter, the Director of Public Health and Social Services, for our Director's Report.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. Good afternoon. I know several people had to go because we're running down to time here today, but I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for your presentations today and for being here, and our amazing staff, and especially the mothers and babies that took the time out of their day to come here and share their brave and personal stories, and how the Nurse Family Partnership has changed their life. So we really appreciate that. And really, it just highlights, you heard about our environmental health program, our maternal child health, our community health, our behavioral health. While they are not part of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services anymore, we continue to be close partners with BHO and really appreciate them for their work. And it really just highlights the diverse work we do and the critically important work of Public Health and Social Services. So I'm going to share a few other highlights of our work over the last month.
Take your time.
Our department is committed to promoting child, family, and community wellness, and this starts at home and at work. And I'm really excited to share that our department is proposing a pilot project for employees who work at our Lily Road location to be able to bring their infants to work for the first 6 months. We drafted a policy for the Board of County Commissioners to consider approving later this month. Research shows that an infant at work policy and program has health benefits to parents and infants, as well as economic benefits to employers, including reduced overall health care costs, increased duration of breastfeeding rates, which you heard a little bit about the Nurse Family Partnership Program does as well. And it has multiple lifelong health benefits to both the mother and the baby, as well as the fathers and other family members. It promotes reduced absenteeism at work, increased employee economic benefits because they can save on child care, higher employee productivity for all the employees, not just the parents, because we all get to benefit from holding babies at work, lower turnover, higher employee retention, and increased employee morale. So this policy will create a highly desirable benefit to our workforce, which we hope will attract more people who want to come and join us and promote our efforts to improve gender and pay equity here in Thurston County. So this is a best practice in the public health sector and has been successfully adopted and implemented in other local health jurisdictions, as well as the Washington State Department of Health and many other state government agencies and other private industries. Our department plans to pilot this if approved, and with a goal to extend this to other county departments possibly in the future. So we're really excited about that. And it's also part of our efforts with the Thurston Thrives initiative to improve social determinants of health. One other thing that we do that a lot of people may not be aware of is child death review. So the state law authorizes local health jurisdictions to conduct child death reviews so that preventable causes of child mortality can be identified and addressed in Washington State and in local counties. On average in our state, 720 kids die each year, and in Thurston County, approximately 24. These deaths are preventable by using statewide and local prevention strategies. So our child death review and prevention is a process used to prevent injury and death by identifying circumstances leading to children's deaths, collecting and reporting accurate information, improving interagency coordination around child health and safety, and implementing systems, policy, and environmental changes to prevent children's deaths. Our local Child Death Review and Prevention Team reviews deaths of children under the age of 18 who have unexpectedly lost their lives. Our team identifies preventable circumstances in these deaths and considers strategies to improve the health and safety for all children. Experts from many backgrounds, our own local public health professionals, healthcare workers, social services, schools, teachers, law enforcement, our local coroner's office, all participate together and serve on our local team, which is led by Bonnie Peterson, our Children with Special Healthcare Needs nurse. Last week, our Child Death Review Committee met and reviewed a youth suicide case. A result of this meeting will be the convening of a cross-agency suicide extreme team. This is going to be a focus for our department. It's also a priority for the state legislature this next year as well. So this is all to say that it's an important reminder as well that September is National Suicide Prevention Month. All month, mental health advocates, prevention organizations, survivors, allies, and community members unite to promote suicide prevention awareness, and it's a time that we can share resources and stories and further awareness of this issue. So World Suicide Prevention Day was actually yesterday, and while we didn't have a proclamation for that, I felt like it was really important to share that with you today. It's time to remember those affected by suicide, to raise awareness, and to focus our efforts on directing treatment to those who need it most, and that's another reason why it was great to hear all the wonderful things that the Behavioral Health Organization is doing in this effort. We can all help prevent suicide, and so I just wanted to share a resource with those in the public who may be watching. The Suicide Lifeline provides 24 hours, 7 days a week, free and confidential support, and connects with our local crisis centers for people that are in distress and provide resources to not only those who may be considering suicide themselves, but their family members and professionals who are trying to work with those people. So that phone number is 1-800-273-8255. And of course, 911 is also a resource that then can connect to those DCPs that you were talking about earlier. It was great to have the BHO here, as I mentioned, and to continue to be a partner and leader with them in preventing unnecessary deaths and promoting access to treatment, especially the prevention of opioid overdoses and public health issues related to the use of injection drugs. Our syringe service program served 188 clients and took in 123,787 syringes just in the last month. Our staff distributed 99 doses of naloxone, with reports of 14 doses used to reduce overdose deaths. So that's 14 people whose lives were likely saved because they had access to naloxone, also known as Narcan. Our staff are planning for a community naloxone distribution event to be held in conjunction with the BHO at the end of this month. Also, our next opioid task force meeting will be held on October 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. and we invite those who would like to join that task force in developing our local opioid response plan. Last month, a regional housing summit sponsored by Thurston Thrives, the Thurston County Chamber Foundation, Thurston County, and was attended by city, county, state, and community leaders to discuss the challenges of affordable housing and the incentive opportunities for collaboration to address the homeless crisis in our community. I also attended a meeting along with Commissioner Blake with Olympia City Council earlier this week to discuss several projects and strategies being proposed to address the large number of those living in our community without shelter. Last month, we also had an official from FRENA come to our hazardous weather task force to conduct a tabletop exercise in preparation for activation of our Code Blue hazardous weather response plan, which we'll talk about more probably next month as the cold weather season begins in November. Last month, the Thurston County Commissioners approved a 5-year homeless housing strategic plan. And in that plan, one of the items is the hiring of a housing and homeless prevention response coordinator. And we are currently recruiting for that position now. Our Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention is also preparing for our annual point in time census again already, which will be conducted in January. Our Developmental Disabilities Program hosted the first Thurston County High School Transition Committee meeting, attended by representatives from the Washington State Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, employment providers, and schools. And this committee promises to be a strong forum for discussing the school to work program and related processes and building partnerships. Our Developmental Disabilities Program continues to be a strong leader statewide for everything that they're doing. So we're very excited for that committee that they are leading. The Community Design Action Team of Thurston Thrives submitted its final impact report in the Healthiest Cities and Counties Challenge. As you know, we already ranked in the top 50 in our country. Our local project, coordinated by our department, is in the running for the grand prize, where 1 of 10 finalists will be selected to get an award to make further improvements that will increase access to physical activity opportunities across Thurston County, which has many health benefits. One other thing that I wanted to share with the public is the availability of our Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Water Resources Monitoring Report. It's now available on our website, and it is a fascinating and interesting report. The Water Resources Report contains lake and stream water quality data collected by the Environmental Health Division during the summer of 2017 in both streams and lakes. The monitoring is part of our ambient monitoring program funded by the local storm and surface water utilities of Thurston County and the cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. Thurston County maintains an ambient monitoring program that's collected surface water quality data in lakes and streams since 1988. The objectives of the surface water monitoring program are to collect baseline information about water quantity and quality in Thurston County streams and lakes, to identify problem areas and track trends in water quality over time. And so this report includes data on 8 lakes and 35 sites on 27 streams. Our Vital Services program issued 456 death certificates and 824 birth certificates this last month. And speaking of deaths, I have some sad news to share. One of our longtime Medical Reserve Corps volunteers, Dr. Brad Waite, passed away last week. He was one of the original members of our MRC, participated on many national committees, was really instrumental in our MRC, always dedicated to those he served, both as a local family physician and as a volunteer. And he is just going to be deeply, deeply missed. We're very devastated. He helped with our back to school and vaccination clinics last month that I shared with you. We're just really grateful for all the lives that he touched, and sorry for the loss of his family. And his funeral is scheduled for Saturday, September 29th at 2 p.m. at South Sound Manor, and many of us will go there and honor him for the gifts that he gave to our community. The Communicable Disease and Prevention Team investigated, reported cases of Giardia, Salmonella, Chlamydia, and gonorrhea. Dr. Wood may cover some of this. They worked on information to send forward to the public health system, to the legislature for our foundational public health services, which you heard about last month, which is one of our top legislative priorities, as well as a collaborative project to prepare for hepatitis A immunizations for vulnerable homeless individuals at risk. Our staff are also received training for hepatitis C testing and counseling and are working with Dr. Wood on a testing protocol. And it is back to school time, flu season's approaching, and we encourage people, especially children, vulnerable adults, and college students to get your vaccinations, and I will pass it on to Dr. Wood for her report. Unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions of Shelley?
I don't think so. No, that was a good, boy, that was a report. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank
We
you.
do a lot every day.
Oh, I
That's
know,
just
we
a
know.
little snapshot.
Oh. Dr. Wood?
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to introduce Dr. Nathan Brown. He is in his last year of training as a family physician at St. Peter's Family Medicine Residency, and you are the...
Microphone.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Introduce again, please.
Yes, I want to introduce Dr. Nathan Brown, who's a third-year family medicine resident at St. Peter's Family Medicine Residency. You gentlemen authorized my signing a contract with St. Pete's so that I can train physicians who are learning to be my clinical colleagues of what we do here in public health so that we can have better partnerships. So I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Brown, and thank you for making that possible.
Welcome aboard.
Yes. I wanted to let you know, it's been in the news, so you probably already know that there was a West Nile virus was found in a pool of mosquitoes in Pierce County. It's the first time that the virus has been found on the western side of the Cascades. We have had the state monitors the mosquito pools, and the reason I say it's a pool is they don't just test one mosquito. They catch a whole bunch of them and then grind them up and test and see if the virus is in there. And we have, isn't that charming? Yes. So we haven't had any human cases in Washington this year, which is a good thing. We have had over 200 in the nation this year and 8 deaths. What most people don't realize is 80% of people who get the virus don't even know they have it. 20% may, 19% may be mildly ill with a headache and achy limbs, and then less than 1% get a really nasty situation where they have problems with their arms and legs not functioning. Moving to another charming infectious disease, influenza. The influenza season will be picking up, coming up. Yes, thank you for getting your shot. I wanted the public to know that the flu mist is back again this year. It was not on the menu for the last 2 years. The makers of flu mist have modified it's a quadrivalent form of the vaccine. There's 4 different proteins from 4 different types of influenza, and they've changed one of those components and done studies, and it's supposed to be effective. It was effective around the globe, but in this country for a couple of years, not so effective. But that's nice because that means it's a needleless application of the flu vaccine. And then just to praise our Medical Reserve Corps yet again, we did have done 3 of our 4 back-to-school vaccination clinics. We have served 281 children, given 146 of those children screened out. They didn't need any more immunizations. 135 children got immunizations, and of those 135 children, 305 vaccinations were given. So there's many different kinds of vaccines against different illnesses that are given. So that's how 135 kids can get 305 vaccinations. And I'll stop there.
Great.
Hey, Dave.
Just a quick question. The 200 West Nile cases in the United States so far, are those tending to move farther north each year?
That's an excellent question, because many years ago I saw, people map out where cases show up in humans, and but this has been several years. They went back more like 15 or 20 years, and you could sort of see a real-time progression if you advance the slides quickly of it moving from the East Coast over to the West Coast. So not necessarily going north, okay, but just coming across the country in a wave slowly. So I just recommend that people make sure they don't have standing water. Don't keep flower pots around by your trash can that could fill up with water, and wear protection, especially at dusk and dawn, and so that the mosquitoes won't come and bite you.
Thank you.
Robin, did you have anything?
Just as a follow-up to the BHO has been a fabulous partner with the county for these last few years. With the transition that's coming up, one of my concerns in my role as budget director is what impact that will have on the county budget, and we still don't have a really clear picture of that. So we will continue to work with Mark and Joe and the rest of the team. Yes, Shelley, definitely, because this is the budget that will probably impact is our public health budget, but we'll continue to work with them to try to clarify as we develop the budget what that effect on the county might be.
Yeah, sure, doctor, go ahead.
Just one last, there is one more back-to-school clinic I wanted people to be aware of. It's on Saturday, the 22nd, and it's at Kaiser Permanente Building on Lily Road.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I thought you had another mosquito story. But no. Shelley, any last words, thoughts, comments you might have thought of? No? Lydia, anything? No? How about you? No?
Nope.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the BoH meeting of September 11, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned.